Yeah, baby.
And notice our accountants have a special little thing in their cups. Anyway, if you would, please join me in the pledge to the flag.
Still alive, the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies. Stephen. I'm not sure if Diane or Will, who is going to introduce our guests and visitors this morning. Diane has it.
Morning, if you would stand when I call your name, so people can reach you. We have Asher Hortman, or student from Working School of Technology.
Morning.
Father Greg Hortman,
Morning.
Doug Rudd.
Morning.
And our speaker, Tim Barker, with the attorney's office.
Morning.
If you would, let's all give them a nice round of applause. Survey. Guy in the back, you must have called that.
Yeah, Joe.
Do we have any happy dollar? Chris, Izzo.
I have 40 happy dollars. Ooh, that's big for me. So, on Sunday, Beth and I celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary. 40 is
Thank you, Chris. So did you say you actually made it or it's coming up?
She tolerated me for 40 years, so yes, it's fast.
It passed. Well, good, you made it. Good. 20 great years. 20 great years. Any other happy dollars this morning? Oh, Mr. Hoffler, our 50-50 winner.
Here's $4 happy for first time winner.
Congratulations. Lindell.
I have two happy dollars, one for each of my sons who survived a Monday night concert in Silver Spring, Maryland, just the two of them. So they made it down there to the concert and made it back. I figure that's worth at least a buck.
Don't want to know what they did while they were there.
Happy dollar for my youngest son. It's my only son. He is also my oldest son.
And favorite.
But anyway, he's celebrating. Very good. Announcements.
Karen.
I have three happy dollars today. I want to thank Hunter and his accounting firm for doing Dad's final tax return, so I didn't have to worry about that. I also have a happy dollar because my friend and the district attorney, Tim Barker, is here today to speak. And finally, and most importantly, a happy dollar because my cat, Cece, got out of the house this morning. And I was running around in pitch black darkness in the backyard trying to rescue the cat, which I was able to do, so I did not have to call Todd.
Let's make sure that cat doesn't have a blade straight down its back. Friedel. We should probably give Bob and Friedel or give a happy dollar for Bob and Friedel being here. It's great to have you. Anyone else? Very good. Announcements for this morning. Come on, there has to be some. Right, then I'll throw out
road cleanup.
road cleanup, yeah, and so I'm sure, hopefully you all saw the email that last week we had to cancel our road cleanup just due to the weather conditions. That has been rescheduled for this Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. I've been told so far we only have a Jim and Tim team that can, do that. So if we have any other volunteers that are able to help clean up this Saturday morning, meet at CVS on Edgewood Road, and we'll have trash bags, we'll have safety vests, we'll have gloves, all necessary things provided to go up and down Edgewood and clean up the trash in that section of road. So please let Jim know if you're able to help out. Anyone else? Diana, I knew I was hoping. Oh, sorry.
Starting next week, I will start announcing the sponsorships like we did in the past, just of what has been received at each level. So if you're expecting a certain sponsorship to come in, you'll hear those names week by week, so that way you'll be recognized. If you want to make it a goal to get it in by next week, that would be great. So that way your organization's names will be continued every week.
That was a great plug. Get your sponsorships in by next week and it'll be announced to the club. That's a great idea. Jeff?
Do you have any extra flyers today with you? I need some.
Yeah.
Oh, they're on. Okay, great.
So Jeff Snyder at our board meeting last week, Diana kind of threw out, we're going to do something special for the person that gets in the most sponsorships. Jeff's on a roll, man. So if you want to meet Jeff, you need to get in more sponsorships and what he has. Any other announcements? If not, I'm just going to throw out that today we would like to have all the names submitted that are going to be attending our special breakfast meeting on April the 29th. I know most of you have filled out the sheet that has been emailed around. I'll say right now, I know we have at least 20 people that are going to be attending that morning. So it should be a great turnout, very good meeting. I'm not sure, I think I did announce this to the club. We were planning to have Glen Hope Farms in to make our presentation. That's going to have to change just due to a health issue that popped up. So we're going to work on what our program is going to be for that morning, but just so you're aware, Glen Hope will not be able to make the presentation on the 29th, but we'll find another good speaker for that group that's coming in. Anybody else? Any other announcements?
You know where that meeting is going to be?
That meeting is going to be, I'm glad you asked that. So that meeting is going to be in the terrace room. And that morning, we are not going to have a Zoom offering. Just due to circumstances, we're not going to do a Zoom meeting, but our meeting will be in the terrace room that morning. Elizabeth. And it would be nice if you're here early. We are, like I said, we're expecting at least 20 people to be in addition to this group here. So just, and I'm going to throw this out. I've said from the beginning, we want to do Rotary different. We're going to actually ask if members can be kind of scattered throughout the room. We're going to try to bring in the guests and actually have them sitting at different tables so they're not all meeting at the same table. They're mixed in with some of our members. So we're going to try to, I don't want to say give you assigned seats, but we're going to certainly scatter you all about throughout the room. Anything else on that breakfast meeting? If not, I'm going to ask if Todd would come forward to introduce our student of the month.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, we are back today. Unfortunately, last month, we had one student that was not able to make it when we had students of the month. So, from the York County School of Technology, I'm going to introduce Asher Hortman. Come on up here. We're thrilled that he was able to coordinate his schedule so we could get him in here before school was out. So.
My name is Asher Portman. While I was thinking about the way I wanted to phrase the speech, I didn't really have a good starting point to start from. So I might as well just start from where I come from and where I plan to go. So what's unique about me as a student is I've been given the opportunity to live overseas. Me and my family have been missionaries over in Thailand for 12 years, and we have recently moved back to the States in 2019. Over there, we got to bless so many people by helping them both in a spiritual manner and a physical sense of that. One of my favorite things to do that we were over there was to help with all the tourist projects. I'm a very hands-on and very planning-oriented person, so being able to help build, construct, and help the community over there grow was so amazing. While in the area, we also got to visit some of the surrounding countries as well, such as Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam as well. If you don't know, one of the major things that plagues a lot of those countries around there, especially Cambodia, is they have a lot of disabled people that live amongst them. Back a couple of years ago, there was a war there that a lot of soldiers fought in brutal wars, and one of the main tactics that they used were landmines. And unfortunately, it mangled and emasculated a lot of the veterans that served there. So a lot of the people there are still living with those things there. Truly seeing that truly broke my heart, and it's something that's founded this deep passion for serving people. And as I got older and I grew up, and now that we're back here, I found ways to be able to help. Currently, I attend York County School of Technology, and I'm studying engineering. The career path that I really want to pursue is biomedical engineering and a mechanical engineering degree. I really like the thought of creating prosthetics to both help those who have been wounded, who are missing limbs and pieces of themselves, and being able to restore and give them the life that they once had. It truly is an honor to be here in front of you today to share a little bit more about my story. At my time at Tech, I've learned so many hands-on skills that comes to design work as well. A lot of that helps with being able to create things out of my imagination and to help others. One of the greatest things about engineering is that we're very customer and client focused, very people oriented, and that way all of our projects are based to help serve others. In these future years, I hope to plan on attending York College, pursuing a degree in mechanical engineering. One of the things that they focus on is community-oriented things, and a lot of their projects are based on helping the community around us. I know that Rotary does a great job with helping the community around them and inspiring young leaders to go forward and to do something amazing to help others with their people career. And it's just such an honor for your guys' help this morning. Thank you. I'm seeing this one. Any other questions for us?
Yeah, we all hear about AI. How do you think that'll come into play with your future?
Absolutely. Great question. AI currently is used in a lot of places to gather information and to gather knowledge. However, one of the main uses that AI has been helped with doing is a lot of the prosthetic. One thing that recently came out was the ability of Neuralink, with being able to control robotic limbs using neuron pathways. One of the ways that they do that is they're able to use AI to read and scan. That way you're able to fully control a robotic prosthetic or a robotic extension just via your mind, like you would any other muscle of your body.
When you came back from overseas, did you know you were going to York Tech right away?
Right away, no. I was put into our local public school, York Suburban. However, working with them, they don't have the most developed engineering program, and that's something that York Tech was able to offer in extensive amounts comparatively as well.
Thank you very much for being here, Asher.
And right now, I'm going to ask if Karen come forward to introduce our program, please.
Hey again, everybody. So I'm going to introduce District Attorney Barker, and before I get into the nitty gritty of his bio and all the great things he has done, I've known Tim for quite a long time. I started in the DA's office many years ago, not as many as Tim, but he was always willing to give me a hand with things, and I'm just going to give two quick stories that stick out in my mind. The first homicide case where I was second chair on the case, about 3 to 4 weeks before the trial, the lead counsel told me, oh, by the way, you're going to question all the expert witnesses. And I was like, excuse me. Which is something he did not like to do. So in a panic, I went to Tim. Tim was more than willing to help me out. He actually pulled some transcripts from the Whitman case to help me in questioning one of the blood spatter experts from PSP. So always appreciated that. The second story that I will tell you, which is above board, he prosecuted the Blossom Valley case, which was, really something that was not done and probably still isn't done today, where he not only prosecuted the truck driver that killed the mother and the child in Glen Rock, he also prosecuted the business. So I was second chair on that case and got to see Tim in action. He got a guilty verdict against all of those individuals involved. And that story sticks out because I had the worst toothache I ever had in my life during that trial, and actually missed a few days because I had to have my tooth extracted. So that being said, on January 17th, 2025, Timothy J. Barker was sworn in as district attorney for York County. In his address, he highlighted 3 core principles: public safety, community well-being, and fairness and justice. Tim has a long-standing history of service to the York County community. He served as a prosecutor in the York County District Attorney's Office since 1998 and as an executive prosecutor since 2001. Prior to becoming district attorney, Tim acted as first assistant district attorney, appointed to that position by former district attorney and current attorney general Dave Sunday. Tim's prosecutorial experience on behalf of York County included specializing as a complex trial and appellate litigator, which included many complex and well-known homicide by vehicle, child abuse, elder abuse, domestic violence, drug delivery resulting in death, terrorism, and economic fraud cases. Prior to becoming district attorney, he was entrusted in his executive roles with establishing investigative and prosecutorial policies for York County. He is nationally recognized for his prosecutorial work, including receipt of the 2007 National Traffic Safety Award for Prosecutors presented by the National Association of Prosecutor Coordinators, and being named the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration National Association of Prosecutor Coordinators Prosecutor Fellow for 2011 and 2012. And that's a mouthful. Tim actively developed and provided leadership for many of the highly successful public safety and criminal justice initiatives enacted in York County. He served as managing co-chair of the advisory board for the York County Reentry Coalition since its inception. He also served on the York County Mental Health Justice Advisory Committee, Co-Responder Oversight Committee, Steering Committee for the York Stable Housing Collaborative, Governance Committee for the Group Violence Intervention Initiative, and Advisory Board for Community Action for Recovery and Diversion. Tim was recognized a critical contributor to the developments of the Target 25 DUI Supervised Bail Initiative, which is a nationally recognized innovation in DUI reduction, and served as an executive supervising prosecutor to the York County Wellness Courts on behalf of the District Attorney's Office. Tim was a regular presenter and co-presenter on a national and state level concerning public safety and criminal justice initiatives, homicides, vehicular crimes, and forensic evidence. Tim also is a frequent speaker on victims' rights, which included being a featured presenter at the kickoff rally for the 2006 National Crime Victims' Rights Week at the Pennsylvania State Capitol. Tim received his bachelor's degree in political science and history from Dickinson College in 1991, receiving his law degree from the University of Pittsburgh School of Law in 1995. If we could all welcome District Attorney Tim Barker. While he's walking up, I'm just going to put a plug in. He is here in his official capacity as district attorney. But as you can see, there is an election coming up in May, and Tim, even though he is a district attorney, is on the ballot and running. So I'm going to ask you to please support him in that election.
Have my water here, I have my phone up, I'm going a little high tech today because I have some stats that I'm gonna go ahead and mention in a couple of moments as well. And basically what I wanted, and if nobody minds if I just clip that on my tie for a moment to free my hands. I want to go ahead, as Karen mentioned, not only have we been friends for a long time, we've worked in the office together for many, many years, and I've been doing this since 1998. And I want to talk for today a little bit about where we were, where we are now, and where we're going. And I think it's important to really understand what the approach of collaboration and doing so when you're focused on accountability and redemption, what that really means and what that's meant to York County. So I want to start off with where we were. We basically, as a county, in terms of our crime rates, we bottomed out between 2011 and 2013. We were not in a good state at all in the county. We kept on increasing with our crime rates. We kept on seeing our inability to reduce violent crime. We kept seeing more cases flow in, and there was almost becoming, and I remember being there at the time, we were very good at prosecuting people. We're very good at convicting people, but we weren't good at stopping this increase of crime. We kept on saying, well, maybe this is just due to the fact our population is growing. Maybe this is just the modern way. Modernization has now hit York County. None of that seemed right. None of that seemed true. But we didn't know what to do with the traditional methodologies. So what do I mean by how our crime rates were? Well, our prison population, I'll just start off with that. We wound up topping out in 2013 at 1,739 inmates at York County Prison. That's excluding our ICE population. That's a separate contract. This was individuals that were being incarcerated, our daily average population in York County Prison. And we didn't have short-term holds like we have today in conjunction with central booking. These were individuals who were being committed for any length of time, and a lot of them were going to be 30 days and up. So we were seeing these types of increases. We wound up having homicide rates and gun violence rates that were so high. And if you recall, now our homicide rates, we were flowing overall for the county, we would average anywhere from 14 to 20 during that time period. Now, homicide rates can be a difficult stat because there's a lot of variables, same way as vehicular fatalities. There can be a lot of variables. But what there isn't a variable for is how many people are victims of gun violence. That rate was extremely high. Same as on our roadways, our victims of vehicular crime. Those rates were very high. We were just having so many issues in that way. One of the things about our case filings too, that I want to mention, we hit in 2012, 9,226 case filings with the Court of Common Pleas. That's how many adult criminal case filings are worth. That's not extreme juvenile, any kind of ICCs, other miscellaneous docket matters. That was just our adult criminal case docket level. When I started in 1998, we were around 6,300. So that was where we got to. Something had to change. The first approach that began to change, now we had wellness courts. that had started by that point in time. And Karen was very involved in wellness courts. All but our veterans courts have been fully developed. That got developed, if I recall correctly, in 2012 was when veterans courts started with Judge Craig Tribulcock coming in. But all of our other ones were now established. But it wasn't having the wide scale impact because it's a very narrow population that goes to wellness courts, high-risk, high-need individuals, and it's back end. It's when the case has already gone through Court of Common Pleas and we're doing like a sentencing aspect. We weren't hitting individuals in the front end. And Judge Jack Kennedy one day was taking a look at some DUI cases. And he saw this individual come in, and it was his 4th DUI offense. And he had 3 pending. And he took a look and he's like, how is this happening that every time he had ROR bail? He's just released on his own recognizance. How is this occurring? And so he wanted to have a meeting about this. And so Tom Kearney was our DA at the time, and I was assigned to represent our office to go to the meeting where he called in a whole collective of individuals. And we had from the chiefs of police, we had Mark Bensel there. We had Judge Barry Gloss was there representing the MDJs. Nina Shell was our clerk of courts at the time. And we had representatives from probation and other individuals from the system that were there. And we sat around and we were trying to diagnose what occurred. There were a lot of different theories that were being put out there. The most accurate one was being put forth by Judge Gloss. He said, I think it's the fact that the systems do not communicate. And we just don't know about all these pending offenses when they're happening. I volunteered our office. I said, look, we cannot deal in speculation. We have to deal in data. We don't have the data. I'm volunteering my office to do a review of every repeat or multiple offender within a 10-year window, because that is our look back period for prior offenses for DUIs that count towards your prior record score, 10 years. We're going to go ahead and we're going to run every one of these from the year 2010. And we're going to try and diagnose what happened here. So our office did a very intense audit. The results showed us that, yeah, Judge Bloss was right. The systems weren't communicating, but also showed us that we really weren't well developed in our bail techniques and what we were doing at the MDJ level and at the point in time of arrest. We weren't focusing in that way. Now, ironically, at this point in time already, there had been some data and science coming out saying that within the first 20 days of police contact, that's your most fertile time for going ahead and having an individual who has higher needs to get them the help that they need to rehabilitate them and potentially knock down their criminal, their criminogenics, their criminal ideation, and to go ahead and help them defeat the different needs aspects, which are your substance abuse, mental health issues, things like that. That first 20 days is your key window. Well, we were a back-end system. So even though we could process a file through maybe in say 6.5 to 7 months on average, that's 6.5 to 7 months with nothing happening. So your bail is either ROR or you get cash bail. There's no conditions. There's no drug and alcohol screens. There's no orders to go ahead and get evaluations and to go into treatment. No, nothing like that. So is it any wonder we're having all these issues, especially in areas impacted by behavioral health? So what we decided was we implemented the Target 25 system. And that's where I call our first foray into really going into a modern approach of accountability and redemption that we went into, focusing on our DUI cases. And what that was a bail initiative where upon arrest, if you were a repeat or multiple offender within a 10-year period, then we were going to put conditions on you with bail. And those conditions were going to include either an alcohol monitoring bracelet, urine screens for drugs. You would have to have contact with a supervised probation officer. You could get orders to have evaluations for drug and alcohol treatment, and you could also be ordered to go into drug and alcohol treatment. So there was a scope of stuff, but at the very least, you were going to get restrictions put on your ability to consume alcohol and drugs. And it was going to be within that essentially first 4 to 7 days. We try to get it as immediate as possible, but it is technology. You have meetings you have to go to. So at the very least, we're going to get there within the first 4 to 7 days. What we found from that, in that first year, we already began knocking down our repeat and multiple offender, that target 25 offender, started to knock that population down in 2012. By the time we hit 2013, we reduced our victims of DUI crimes by 10%. We have held these reductions ever since. And from that, we went to a whole scope of things where we began to utilize also something back then, it was called intermediate punishment. Now it's called restrictive probation, where we began to, instead of just doing incarceration, we began to incorporate a lot more house arrest and a lot more inpatient treatment and a lot more intensive outpatient treatment and other outpatient treatments, keeping people in cycle of working, doing a lot of things in that nature. And lo and behold, we continued to find that our numbers kept going down and our victims of DUI crime kept going down. And in the end, that was the major goal, knock victimization down. To where when we hit COVID and everywhere around the country went up, we started to retreat to numbers we hadn't seen in 2 decades across the country. We did not go up. We went slightly down and have continued to hold this being down. Now, as Jack Kennedy used to say, there is no more random crime that can kill a person than driving while impaired. So that's what we know we can do, and we started there with one of our biggest types of crimes. That had a direct impact also on something else that I'll get into in a moment. Are they continuing to be repeat offenders? And the answer was no. We have by far and away the best, what they call recidivism rate, repeat offender rate, out of any county that was compared to us in the 2000, they were studying 2016 stats, and they're doing it every year forward, 16, 17, 18, 19. So right now we're up to 2018. It's being done by IUP. They're doing the study. What they found is that our DUI recidivism rate is far lower than any other county. And in fact, to give you a teaser, our 5-year recidivism rate, going off of 2016, when people got sentenced then to supervision, was 8% lower than any of the comparable counties. So we're that much at a 5-year period. By the way, on average, your criminal supervision only has a staying impact power, usually, of 2 years. If you get beyond 2 years and it's having staying power, that's really successful. 5 years out. And our numbers did not increase greatly. And in fact, when you talk about those that did commit another crime, only around 1% increased in crime. All the ones that did commit another crime either committed the same level or decreased in crime. So we weren't seeing escalations, that growth of criminogenic, where you become more violent, or you become a bigger felon, or anything like that. We were seeing it all get knocked down. That's a 5-year period where we're looking at that total go out to. So that was our first foray into this, and we began to see some things drop down. We began some initiatives. Karen mentioned that I'm managing co-chair of our Reentry Coalition, been doing that now 8 years. We started that journey 2016. We started GVI, the Group Violence Intervention Initiative, at the same time period. We began these aspects. Dave and Pam Gay started the Heroin Task Force, became the Opioid Collaborative, and around that same time period. And so little by little, we're chipping away at aspects. And then Dave became DA. And when Dave became DA, one of the things that we talked about right away was we were going to go ahead and we were going to put this on high octane full blast. Here we go. And as Dave jokingly says to people, well, half jokingly says, it's like, yeah, I decided to unleash Tim, and everybody that knows me knows that unleashing me has both its strong points and sometimes its confrontational points. But at all times, we go out and try to do the best that we can for the community. And so this is what we did. And you notice a direct correlation from 2018 on between our increase in initiatives, straight up going like that, and our decrease in crime, prison population, adult probation caseload. These are, and our case filings. So as we went through with where we are today, we have been able to sustain a real 30% reduction in crime over the last 8 years. Now, this is a real reduction in crime. Looking at Todd over here, one thing I always get asked, I got asked this actually by Justice Doherty, who has the Philadelphia experience in his background. He looked at me when we were talking about this at a meeting a couple of weeks ago. We were looking to do an investment in mental health in our prison to go ahead and create a new competency restoration and behavioral health block. Because with our reduction in prison population, we can actually convert areas of the prison to other things, which I'll mention a couple of those in a moment. But he looked at me and goes, now, is that a real reduction in crime, or is that a statistical reduction in crime? I said, no, it's real. You're in York County. We still arrest people here. And afterwards, we joked about it. I said, I knew exactly why you're asking that question. He goes, well, I was trying to be polite and tactful because you know where I'm coming from. I said, I know exactly where you're coming from because they play with stats all the time there. It's easy to have a 0% crime rate. You just don't recognize anything as a crime. Then guess what? Yeah, hey, we're doing wonderful. Nothing's a crime. Everybody's dead, but nothing's a crime. So ours is real and it's been sustained. Now, what's gone along with that, and this is where I'll look at a couple of my stats. I mentioned before about when we bombed out at 9,226 case filings. Where we are today and what we're projected for 2025, we are projected today to have 6,280 criminal case filings through our clerk of court's office. That's a huge reduction. That reduction that we've had is at least a 30% reduction. It's around 32% is what we're projecting now. Now, that is, it all corresponds with the crime rate reduction. It also corresponds with our initiatives, fighting recidivism and getting more active in spaces at the MDJ level. We actually now dispose of at the MDJ level, we used to on average dispose of between 7 to 8% of cases. We switched our methodology 2 years ago, and we've even increased it this year with a little more restructuring to where we are trying to be at every single preliminary hearing block that our magisterial district courts have. And by doing so, we were running for the last 2 years between 28 to 30% of our cases being able to have resolution, and they're real resolutions into appropriate levels of care, appropriate treatment aspects, appropriate places. Because why put somebody through an extra 4 months in a system to rack up costs and not get treatment when they're a low-risk individual, when you can do it right there? And that is for our future goals, something we're going to continue to expand. We expect that this rate is going to be over 30%. And if we continue to invest in this methodology, there are some counties that, based upon this targeted approach to criminal justice, are at around 50% matching at that early level where a defendant belongs in the system to their needs and the treatment-based aspects, all of which reduce crime and reduce repeat offender rates. We have had the ripple effect also was on our prison population. Our prison population we've reduced by 45%. We didn't just open up the jail doors. I remember how offensive it was when Craig Williams tried to say that against Dave Sunday during the primary race for Attorney General. It's like, I just don't believe in opening up those jail doors. It's like, well, do you like public safety? Do you like people living good lives and community well-being? Well, if you do, you don't just open up the jail doors, but you pay attention to who belongs there, who we're going to separate from society. 20% of the people that we're throwing in jail, they need to be separated from society, protect society. That there's nothing that we can do in a shorter term for them. 80%, if we get in at the right time in the right way, there is something we can do. And there are methodologies and techniques that we can do. And what does this mean overall for taxpayers? When we're just talking about prison, and Scott and I, we both sit on prison board, we all the time take a look at what the cost expenditures were. What was submitted last year to the state as part of our audit was that it cost roughly $204 per day per inmate. So when you knock it down by 45% from the all-time highs, being over 1,700 inmates, that saves $57 million annually. That's what we've done. We're 30% safer and saved $57 million in doing so. That is where we are. And by the way, we're on that exact same rate right now. So this is all real community well-being improvement. You know, another aspect that we have had to deal with as well, gun violence within the city. I mentioned GBI. Well, a big part of our reductions in all these areas are what we've been able to do in terms of crime in the city. There was a separate independent website that, you know, I'm a little leery of a couple of those. Our crime rate data all came from UCRs that were crunched by a couple of researchers that were looking at stuff. Now, we need to factor in the 2023 and 2024 data with that research group. So I went and I tried to take a look at a couple independent ones. And sometimes they can skew a little bit, and most of them focus on the city. Well, what they found for York City for 2023 from their look at UCR data, one of these independent UCR data company websites, was that overall crime in New York City was down 22% in 2023. Now, most of it in the area of violence. Property crime was right around the same, but most of it in violence, gun violence, sexual assault, different areas like that. It ran the gamut of violent crime. Through our GVI, now 2022 was not a good year. It wasn't. Part of the reason why it wasn't was because we had a couple of issues that year. We didn't have the right people in the right places. During that year, we wound up getting a new executive director of our GBI, Tiff Lowe, who's been phenomenal. We wound up with our new police administration, with Commissioner Mike Muldrow, with Captain Dan Lentz, and we have Lieutenant Irvin running the show of a lot of the GBI tactical aspects for how things were going to go. They did a tweak on the targeted approach that they were doing in law enforcement as well. Didn't even do an overhaul, just a tweak. We did an overhaul on our community engagement. By doing that, by facilitating those three legs of the stool, targeted law enforcement, service providers, community engagement, we wound up decreasing beginning in 2023 and then holding it through 2024, a 61% decrease in persons shot. Now, that is so unbelievably significant, and that's going off of the average. That's not just comparing to 2022. If you compare to 2022, it was actually 66%. But if you compare to the averages, that was 61%. 37% decrease in shots fired calls. So that's just gunshots going off in general. And a 25% decrease in all gun-related incidents. 25%. That includes just possession. You know, I'm a person not to possess a firearm. Didn't mean that you fired it, you had it. All of those were going down. What does that mean? We have a much safer York City. Now, how do we know York City is also getting safer? Because when we talk to our friends, especially up in the northern part of the county, and we hear them say the following. You know, York City is definitely getting safer. When I look to go out, I used to look to go to Harrisburg, but Harrisburg's too dangerous. We go to York City. And that's what you want to hear. And that's what you want to see. And it's absolutely true. Perfect? No. Does crime still exist? Yes. Would we love to knock these numbers down even lower? You better believe it. But is this terrific? Is this awesome stuff? You better believe it. Overdose deaths. Last year, we reported 97. That was our lowest total going back to the beginning of the opioid epidemic. When you compare that to where we were in 2020. So 2020, if anybody wants to know some of the ripple effects of the lockdowns, I mentioned previously about the increase in vehicular fatalities that happened because people didn't go out and drive, and when they did, they drove like they were absolutely a terror on the roadway, and they killed people. The other thing that happened was we shut down all social services. So everybody that was getting out of jail, because remember also, it's too dangerous to have people in jail. We literally went through and looked at everybody's file who was in York County Prison, far more closely than some of the state prison reviews were, although they did try to closely scrutinize. But everybody who was getting released or everybody who was already on supervision, their services were shut down. So what that meant was we began averaging almost 5 overdose deaths a week. I was looking at it because I'm on the emails from the coroner's office, and I was looking at it scroll through during that time period. It was like being in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, you know, listening to the count of different wizards who were being killed on the radio. It was horrible. That was every single day when I woke up to see another person die. Many of the names I knew, many of the individuals had been in remission. They lost their services. We went up to over 200 overdose deaths again. We've been working so hard and working on this issue, and then all of a sudden, boom, we go back up. From there, we get the services back. We continue working harder and harder and harder. What do? We get down to 97. That's a 50% reduction in the overdose deaths that we wound up having. This is where we have come. Through our law enforcement driven initiatives in behavioral health, our crisis intervention teams and our co-responder model, they're trained in how to work with individuals in crisis and have social workers to assist them when they do respond to a crisis. We have, when it's a CIT officer involved, 97% non-arrest rate, co-responder involved, a 99% non-arrest rate. They're diverted over to services. Previously, those were individuals that were wound up in York County Prison. Now they're diverted over into systems that are assisting for their health. So this is the kind of very, very tangible and productive aspect that we are doing. All of them are embraced by law enforcement. They work with us, and they're law enforcement driven. If we didn't have law enforcement on board, because all these are meant to get earlier and earlier in the system, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So with all these reductions of where we are, looking forward, are we just looking to maintain? That answer is no. I've already developed and put out where we're going to go over the next 5 years. I'll just mention the focal points because I know I got to wrap up. Our focal points are domestic violence, because it's exposed all our issues in the area of domestic violence that we have. That's one area where we have not been able to make the same significant reduction in terms of crime and in terms of repeat offender rates. Second area, juvenile justice. The very difficult part of juvenile justice, which also feeds into domestic violence, and it feeds into aspects of child abuse as well, is the disruption of the family unit. All of it comes back to that lack of family resources and disruption of family unit for children from the kindergarten through 5th grade. We have data that supports that. We did a data research that showed that that was where we were seeing the issues. And what that does is it increases trauma. And when you have early childhood trauma, it increases a predisposition to going ahead and being involved in crime and also to being specifically involved and engaged in family violence. And these are areas outside the scope of juvenile justice, but we can get there by reimagining our partnerships with school districts and with different agencies that serve families, such as our faith-based communities. We know that we can get there. Third area I already mentioned, which is continued early intervention aspects with our MDJs, going ahead and working earlier with the targeted approach, which will help us focus on another huge priority area, which of course is mental health, our mental health crisis that we have. And we are expanding through the use of our CIP and co-responders, but also with our expansions we're doing and what we're able to reimagine in York County Prison by reducing the population. We were able to convert a wing into an open to the public reentry opportunity center. We were able to convert part of a wing into a juvenile detention center so that locally we actually have some more services for juveniles that we didn't have at other places. We're able to convert a wing also into a competency restoration and behavioral health focused center so that hopefully we can get individuals connected with care even faster and out of jail even faster, working hand in hand with our Stepping Up initiative that we are doing. Of course, continuing to focus on our substance use issues that we have. You know, methamphetamine has gone on the rise. And this is something that we need to fight, you know. Drug traffickers, they try to stay one step ahead. So another priority is really continuing to interconnect Paramus County with intelligence to focus on trafficking of all kinds of human trafficking, including their subsets of drug trafficking, of labor trafficking. And a lot of the labor trafficking is absolutely coercive, involving also sex trafficking, but also trafficking of juveniles to then go ahead and commit crime. It is really nefarious, and we have it here in New York County. It's one of the reasons why I'm glad that our federal partners are reaching out to us to work with us again and communicate with us again. I will freely say that the last 4 years were not big easiness in terms of our partnerships. We saw a lot of initiatives shrink in terms of our ability to work with partners. And an issue that we had with that caused is a lot of the trafficking aspects, it's coming from Maryland. We don't have the reach into Maryland. We need our federal partners to help us reach into Maryland. Dave Sunday as AG has limited reach into Maryland. But the U.S. attorney, the new one that we're going to have for the Middle District, oh, they have a reach into Maryland. And we need their help. We need the help of the FBI, DEA, of ICE. We need all of their help if we're going to fight this scourge of trafficking that is existing. So those are just a few priorities of where we're going. I envision us being able to knock that crime rate down to 50% in the next couple of years. We do this right, we're going to be even safer. We're going to save money, be more prosperous. We're going to be a safer community, public safety, community well-being, fairness and justice. That's where we've been, where we are, where we're going. And I look forward to doing this for you as district attorney. I'm going to keep up the fight. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for your, I'm sorry, Tim, thank you for your presentation. I think, we ran a little bit over on time, but I think it's certainly worthwhile hearing your comments and where we are going and where we've come from. Certainly great progress has been made. So thank you for your service. Thank you for presenting to the club. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I believe we're probably going to get a photo opportunity here. We're going to donate a book to local children's library in honor of your presentation. So we will get a photo. Very good. Once again, let's give a nice round of applause. And I know we may run over a little bit on time. Stick around and hear comments. Certainly, again, something that it's good to hear that we're on a positive trend here in York County. So With that, I hope that everybody has a great week. We will see you next week.